tonight at 9:10.
Hold on to your seat when I say the magic, mouth-watering words. Big Johns.
I'm still holding.
What are you going to do in the debate on animal livestock? Bring a mad cow into the chamber?
Oh, believe me, there are plenty there already, Norman, and they're getting madder all the time. Though I do concede that they're grossly outnumbered by the big load of old bullocks.
Something to beef about. No job for a lady tonight at the later time of 9:10.
And the comedy continues with Maureen Lipman in About Face at 9:40 when she plays the part of a super-efficient sales lady with a passion for amateur operatics. The main news from ITN is at 10:10, followed by all the regional news in A Late Northern Life at 10:55. 11 o'clock tonight sees the start of a new twice-weekly series from Tyne Tees when Eric Robson presents North Tonight, a lively regional magazine covering a wide range of topics including politics, sport, fashion, environment, business and entertainment. And finally, beginning at midnight, continuous through-the-night coverage from ITN of the Gulf conflict. That's our revised lineup tonight. After the break, World in Action talks to Britons with relatives serving in the Gulf.
Quality feel to the interior, geared for big car comfort.
Very stylish. Alfa Romeo.
The interior will embarrass its competitors. Surprisingly refined. An executive car in miniature.
Don't even think about buying another small car until you've sat behind the wheel of the new Metro.
What are you doing? Finishing off my holiday film. It's got no ease, you know.
Yes, Mum, I told you that.
I suppose now you're going to tell me how extremely cheddary it tastes. Well, it does. Come on, there's one left. Cheddary.
Cheddary by name, cheddary by nature.
It's no good. Stop. Take off this silly hat. I may be homesick for Mexico, but only for the food. I miss a good bowl of chili. What is this? Spicy chicken chili sauce? Where you get this?
From a little man I know who has the recipe.
What man?
A man from Humpride. Only he has the skill to blend the spices, so I can make genuine Mexican chili the way you like it.
Delicious. It's perfect chili and so quick. This hombre of yours is a genius. Come, play the music. I am a happy man again.
A new range of mild, medium, and hot Mexican chili sauces from the hombre at Home Pride.
When you've worked up an appetite, thank goodness for Golden Wonder pots. Oh no, someone forgot to go to the shop. The Golden Wonder pots range. Pots of warmth, pots of choice, and pots of taste.
Oi! This one! Oh.
Just make sure you take yours with you, eh?
Aquarius, and sometimes I get carried away.
Scorpio, one nip from me and it's history.
Virgo, and this is my first one.
Capricorn, mind if I butt in?
Capri screaming.
How do you do it?
L'Italia è Buitoni. Buitoni, pizza siciliana.
Sono pronte le pizze.
Buitoni, spaghetti alla carbonara.
Sono al dente.
Share the Italian love of food with new frozen pizza and pasta dishes from Buitoni.
Most refined car of this size, exceptional and brilliant in execution. It's quite a revelation.
I don't believe it.
Back on top, driver of an old Metro in the seat of a new one, and he never guessed best small car in the world.
Don't even think about buying another small car until you've seen the new Metro.
Saddam Hussein. War. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. War. Whoa, 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 whoa. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing.
I think we can only take it, an hour at a time, because we're not going to know when the ground forces move until they've already done it.
War is something I despise, because it means the destruction of innocent lives. We just can't know how our friends feel, being sent to the goal. This time it's for real, I said war.
They are dark days, and I think we're going to have a lot of, dark days, dark weeks and months, I think. That's not just going to clear up overnight. I don't think so.
For the last 5 days, life in Britain has been dominated by the sights and sounds of war in the Middle East. TV schedules have been cleared for dispatches from the front. Newspapers have filled their pages with desert reports. Since war was declared, World in Action's cameras have turned away from the Gulf and towards Britain to capture the mood of a nation now deeply embroiled in conflict. This is a record of Britain's first weekend at war in the Gulf.
It's Thursday, the 17th of January. 5.5 months after Iraq invaded Kuwait, the United States and its allies have hit back.
As you almost certainly will know, Allied forces attacked military targets in Iraq and Baghdad last night.
In the early hours of the morning, just before midnight our time, came the sound of air raid sirens and anti-aircraft fire.
Numb and physically sick. It was almost as though I was on the verge of panic. My heart was thumping and my stomach had tightened, and as though, something was going to happen to me, and it was replaced with a strange mixture of relief that the previous stress of just waiting to see what was going to happen was over, and acute anxiety for Andrew's safety.
The first news that war had begun came from Baghdad.
You think, all our efforts to stop the war have failed, but I think this family's got to gird its loins again and do something more, but a feeling of determination, of wanting people to understand our reasons for being against the war, our reasons for believing that a negotiated settlement would have a more long-term and a less frightening consequence for everybody.
When he was thinking about a career, he really desperately wanted to get into some kind of electronic engineering, having done a YTS, which was basically fixing fruit machines and jukeboxes, which he said, I really can't see me doing this for the rest of my life. And he went down and had a chat with the Army Careers Office. My brother had been in the Army and had said to him, why don't you go and have a chat with them? At his passing out parade, we were very proud of him, and he was also, obviously, had developed in such a short time a great pride for the unit that he belonged to and the uniform he wore. And when we're wondering now whether we did the right thing to sign our consent, we try to think about how we felt then, because I wouldn't want to take that away from him.
Since the start of the Allied attack on Iraq, a heady mix of patriotism and the dramatic reports and pictures of bombing raids on Baghdad have sparked a rush to army recruiting offices across the country.
Hello, can I help you?
Yes, I'd like to register to volunteer my name.
It's increased the amount of people that have come into the office, in particular inquiries. We would normally get about 20 or 30 inquiries a week here. At the moment, we're going through 60, 65, something like that. We actually had a guy here, he was 53 years of age, and when we said that we won't take anybody for the Gulf at the moment, he actually broke down and cried. It's very unfortunate, but, it's just typical of the British people, I think.
Gulf War. I think it's going to be an escalation, and it's a lot of crap flying around, politicians and all this stuff.
Now, they have an indemnity from the shipyard of 4,000 Deutschmarks a day, did you say?
And they want to top up to 10,000.
Well, I write a lot of war insurance risks, which include ships going to the Persian Gulf, aircraft, ships going through the Suez Canal, all sorts of extraneous risks. We took the view that when the initiative put up by the Americans to try and come to a last-ditch attempt to solve the problem failed, that we had to put up our rate sharply. So at the beginning of last week's, we made a massive increase in rate.
As fighting started, Lloyd's of London prepared to open their doors at the weekend for the first time in more than 300 years to take advantage of the sudden boom in the demand for war insurance.
We had an odd case this morning where a journalist was calling or trying to get into Iraq over the weekend and wished to get insurance cover against the risk of detention. In case he was seized by the Iraqi authorities and locked up, he wanted to get a reasonable salary paid to his wife for the period that he was detained.
As I don't know if you, I've just been intrigued by the whole business, especially the Americans saying, we weren't trying to kill Saddam Hussein. We weren't. You bombed his house. Oh yeah, but we got really sophisticated satellite equipment. Yeah, we knew he was out. Yeah, he always goes out 10:15 for a kebab, so, like, you know.
That Kate Adie, she's a right Jonah, isn't she, eh? Everywhere she goes, there's trouble. Isn't it? She's done it again.
I mean, I know they've got sophisticated missiles, but I didn't know they had missiles that knocked on the door and said, is he in? Oh, we'll wait then, all right then. We'll just hover about out here, shall we? Yeah, you're right.
It's Glenda here from the Gulf Moms. Returning your call. I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Within hours of the war starting, relatives of British soldiers, desperate for news, turned to one another for support. Glenda Cocker in Ipswich has organised a telephone helpline for other anxious parents.
While you're offering support, you haven't got time to worry about your own problems. And it really is much easier to cope while I'm busy. It's when the phone stops ringing in the evening, at night. And you then go to bed and you've got time to sort of lay and reflect on it. That's the hardest time for me personally.
Friday, the Islamic Holy Day. British Muslims face new pressures. Britain expects support for its forces in the Gulf, but Saddam Hussein has called on all Muslims to join a holy war.
The message went out was one of restraint, peace, and no agitation of any sort. The government has sent British troops into Muslim Holy Land, and there's likelihood of chemical weapons being used, and a lot of British soldiers and a lot of innocent people are going to die, and we are really protesting against the foreign policy of Britain.
The Britons and Americans are they're not doing nothing to sort peace there, and I don't know why they should be doing it to sort peace between Kuwait and Iraq.
We're going there for the oil.
But that's all they're there for. What they want to do is once the war's over, they've won the war, they want to stay there, and they want the oil. That's all they're doing it for.
Good afternoon, this is James Naughty with Radio 4's continuing coverage of the war in the Gulf on FM. Very soon we're going to be going live to the Ministry of Defence with the Defence Secretary Tom King.
What I'd like to do this afternoon is to bring you up to date with developments since I reported yesterday.
By Friday lunchtime, the government's public relations campaign is also well underway. In an echo of the Falklands War, the daily press briefing by the Ministry of Defence has become unmissable. Tom King brings news of Allied successes, but also of an early setback.
I have to confirm now the loss of a second tornado, as is known, as it was announced last night. That tornado is missing, and the crew is missing as well.
And those who have seen the film. The news reaches Glenda Cocker and her husband Derek as they head for their first support meeting for soldiers' relatives since the fighting started.
The most immediate questions are, what's morale like? The postal courier...
Most of the relatives at the meeting have borrowed a symbol from the families of American hostages in the Middle East. They'll wear yellow ribbons until their sons and daughters come home. For one relative, the previous night's TV news had brought unexpected reassurance.
Please, last night I was watching the BBC News, and I was sitting there, and all of a sudden I saw my brother on top of a tank, and I just went mad. That's my brother! That's my brother! I was just so happy. Got on the telephone to Mum straight away. I just saw him, because the last time we saw him was in August. So I mean, that's a long while, to not see him. And I was just so happy, I even got up early this morning to see if they were going to repeat it again, but they didn't.
I'm sure, we're all afraid for them, and I'm sure they're feeling nervous too, but they're working together and, pulling together, and we've got to do the same now.
For the Van Gelder family and their friends, Friday's news casts a shadow over their ceremonies at the start of the Jewish Sabbath. The news all day has been dominated by missile attacks on Tel Aviv.
After the Scud missile attack in the early hours of this morning, there was another air raid.
Dinner is interrupted to watch the latest bulletin on the missile threat.
For the second night running.
I'm anxious for everybody there. I have a son, our friends have a daughter, I have cousins, I have friends. I know many people who have friends and relations. I'm anxious for everybody there and everybody, in fact, that's caught up in this really awful situation.
When your son was planning to return to Israel this week, did you try to persuade him not to go?
No, I didn't. To begin with, I knew that would be a pretty useless exercise. And on the other hand, also, I didn't feel it would be fair to put that kind of emotional pressure on him.
It is still not clear tonight whether Israel intends to retaliate against Iraq.
In Bristol, news of the latest missile attack on Israel comes as no surprise to peace campaigners Alison and Kevin Wood.
How do you feel about this development in the news?
It's another frightening aspect of what the American and British forces have started in that by attacking Kuwait and Iraq in the way they have.
And what do you feel it means for your campaign, and what does it say about your campaign, this attack on Israel?
It brings even more urgency into the campaign, because unless there is a negotiated settlement very, very quickly, then the risk of the war spreading throughout the whole region and beyond becomes even more great.
Early Saturday morning, Kevin and Alison Wood lead Bristol peace campaigners to the country's main anti-war demonstration in London.
We're going to London really to try and build a campaign that will bring the war to an end.
Why London? Why not Bristol?
Well, London's where the decisions are made, where the power base of this country is, and that's where everyone will go. I think we hope to achieve a lot of media coverage so that people all over the country will see what the opposition to the war is like in this country and the strength of feeling against the war.
Well, the Syrians were friendly with the Iraqis for a long time. Don't they know where the missiles are? Why can't the Syrians take out the missiles? That might be then the Israelis wouldn't need. Oh, God, I mean, the whole thing is such a muddle.
In a great variety of operations.
It's all really terrifying, anyway.
Is that things are going.
For the Van Gelders, Saturday morning's news of a second missile attack on Israel means another day of worry about loved ones at risk. Their son David flew out to work on a kibbutz in southern Israel the day before the bombing started. Along with thousands of other Jewish people in Britain, the Van Gelders try to speak to their son every day to check on his safety.
Is there a lot of noise? Well, sort of a lot of background noise at the moment. Elderly people have failed to put their gas masks on correctly and have suffocated, which seems tragic. And I believe also a baby has also suffocated in its gas mask. I understand it's an Arab baby, which seems a sort of irony, but not something one can take a pleasurable irony. A baby is a baby, and I must identify with those parents who've lost their baby as much as if it were a Jewish baby.
Saturday saw demonstrations against war in the Gulf around the world. The protest organised by the peace campaigners in London was the largest in Britain, but the numbers were only a fraction of those who turned out the previous week.
I'd put them on an aeroplane and take them over to Saddam Hussein and let him have them.
I don't think half of them really know what's going on out there, why we're doing it. They just want peace throughout the world. Everyone wants peace, but it's not an ideal world, is it?
It's got to be done. Can't have a man like him running the world, can you? You know what I mean? If he takes Kuwait, he'll take another little country next week, one the week after, and then where do we stand?
People have not understood what we are saying. What we are saying is that Saddam Hussein is a terrible dictator, that the people of Iraq must not suffer for his actions.
Everybody agrees that what Iraq did by invading Kuwait was a terrible thing, but everybody agrees that the best way to get Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait would be to persist with the sanctions, to stop the war and bring our troops home now.
How can this man called Saddam Hussein cause so much harm, so much pain? He ain't gonna stop, it ain't no lie. One thing is certain, he is gonna die, I'll say his war. Whoa, 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 what is it good for? Absolutely nothing.
In my opinion, it should have happened a lot sooner, this.
Why?
Because of what he's done. He can't walk into another country and take it over. It's like such as us walking into Scotland or Wales and taking that over. It can't be done.
He's got nuclear weapons and the world will be gone if he don't get stopped.
Absolutely nothing.
Early Sunday morning, and the editor of one of Britain's popular daily papers is having trouble planning Monday's front page.
There's no real action, as far as we can tell, at the moment. I mean, there's bombing and so activity going on all the time, but nothing that stands out as being the story to lead the day.
Because, I mean, you imagine the trauma of seeing a British prisoner of war on television, you know. I mean...
The dilemma for daily newspapers like Today during this high-tech war is how to compete with 24-hour coverage by television.
One thing we should do today is to start running a tally of casualties and losses on both sides. I think people are very confused. The underlying thing that we all want to know is just what losses the Iraqis have suffered. Their air force seems to be largely intact, and it seems that the bombing of the Iraqi elite troops is not necessarily working terribly well. So it looks like the whole thing is turning into a very hard nut to crack, and that's what's going to guide us through the day.
I don't know how I would cope without it. I have a very strong faith, and it's something to lean on, and it's very noticeable with the families who are contacting the support groups that those who have a faith are finding it a little easier to cope with their anxieties than those who have no faith at all.
Some people will say that it's a bit morbid to sit down and watch news bulletins and watch every scrap of information. That's the way I deal with it. That's my method. I think about it, I prepare for it, and hopefully if anything happens, whatever happens, I've predicted it somewhere in my mind.
At 3:30, David Montgomery has chosen his front page story.
Story about the taking of it. An Arab risked his life to take the picture and fled with it.
I'm not sure we're going to have... I think we're going to be very much on the human side of the tornadoes. One, that the deadest one to be shot down, and the one that escaped that we got on the spread. So this, in fact, is the curtain of death, this picture. And I think we need to crop it really very tight on the gun emplacement, so it looks quite sinister. So I come below it with curtain of death. It's very immediate because of the live television links with various parts of the world, and certainly with a number of locations in the Gulf. And Unlike even Belfast, which is much closer, we get far more up-to-date information from the Gulf. The problem is that you have various reports being echoed around the world, and then suddenly they're denied, and newspapers, when they set something in a page, are stuck with it. They can change it up to a point, but eventually they're stuck with it, and once it's gone, it's on the press. There's no going back.
Last night in Bristol, those who opposed the war began putting candles in their windows. Something they plan to do every night until the war ends. At 7:10 last night, Today newspaper is forced to change this morning's front page. David Montgomery has a strong human interest story.
I've changed the front page because we've heard now from Baghdad that 2 RAF pilots, the 2 who were downed in the first tornado crash, have been paraded in the streets of Baghdad, apparently blindfolded, along with 7 other Allied flyers, some Americans as well. So it's really, events are beginning to move. After a day where nothing really has happened except 1 tornado down, events have started to pick up, and therefore we're making a quick change, and then we'll tidy up as we go on.
And what have you decided the new headline will be?
Well, it says RAF, blindfolded RAF pilots marched through Baghdad, and a big banner headline of Parade of Evil.
Glenda Cocker, like thousands of other mothers tonight, will be praying that her son does not one day make front-page news from the Gulf.
Friends tend to be either very supportive or really don't want to talk about it. It's in a strange way, almost as though we've already had a bereavement, and where our need is to talk about Andrew. They don't know what to say, so they tend not to say anything. People who you know slightly often say very insensitive things like, "You must have known this could happen when he joined up." They seem to totally overlook the fact that you're still his parents, you still care about him, and that doesn't stop just because he's joined the army.
The feeling in this area is almost the same, in that all the people we talk to say that we should never have gone to war, and that we should be now stopping that war as quickly as possible, because now, having established that we are militarily superior to Saddam Hussein, there is now no justification in proceeding and destroying that country and risking a conflict throughout the region.
Whether the Allies should have waited or not, I don't know. I don't know. At this point, I think I don't want to even speculate anymore. We're in it. I hope it can be brought to an end as quickly as possible, with as few lives lost as possible.
In your darkest moments, what are your greatest fears or anxieties about Andrew?
Well, obviously, we're concerned that he's not physically hurt, but I think our biggest worry is how what he sees and what he's going to be doing is going to affect him. Because even if he's not physically hurt, some of his friends are likely to be. He's going to see things that no one ought to witness, and we're really quite anxious to find out from, professional sources how we can help him, how, what to expect, I think, and how best to help.
In time of war, it's always hard to see the true picture of events. the facts can be buried beneath layers of speculation, rumor, and sheer propaganda. Which is why, in time of war, our newspaper has always been relied on for a clear, objective view of the situation. The Daily Telegraph, where facts come first.
Don't blame me if you get another Verdi situation.
What, when we finish the Dies Irae 5 bars ahead of the orchestra?
Oh, we couldn't hear it, could we? No. Mind you, I don't think anybody noticed.
No.
Oh, nudging a good size 12 now, aren't you?
Don't.
Well, you know what Keith says. Once a woman hits 40, every pound gained is a day nearer the divorce courts.
Gossiping choristers about face, tonight at the later time of 9:40.
Good evening. It's been disclosed tonight that despite the fact that Allied planes have flown more than 8,000 sorties, they've yet to crush Saddam Hussein's military machine. Defense sources say that the majority of Iraqi airfields remain operational and that only 30 of Iraq's total of 800 planes are confirmed as destroyed. They also say that chemical and biological weapons plants have survived the bombing raids. Tonight, RAF Tornado crews are continuing their round-the-clock bombing missions from Bahrain. The Iraqi threat to use Allied prisoners of war as a human shield has provoked international outrage. The Red Cross, which monitors the Geneva Convention, has warned that the move is a clear breach of its rules. The Prime Minister says Iraq's threat is inhuman and illegal. President Bush says America is angry over the brutal treatment of the captured Allied airmen. The prisoners have been displayed and interviewed on television, with the warning that they'll soon be moved to targets like air bases.
If he thought this brutal treatment of pilots is a way to muster world support, he is dead wrong.
Such action would be inhuman, illegal, and totally contrary to the Third Geneva Convention. There is no doubt about the eventual outcome. As every day passes, it becomes clearer that Saddam Hussein cannot win this conflict, but there is still some considerable way to go before he has lost it.
The Saudi airbase of Dhahran has been under attack again tonight. An Iraqi Scud missile launched on the city is reported to have fallen into the sea. And the manufacturers of the Patriot anti-missile missile have just said that the American government has asked them to speed up production following its success in knocking out the Iraqi Scud missiles. That's it for now. Join us again for tonight's News at 10. We'll see you then.
A reminder that our late Northern Life can now be seen at 10:55, and Eric Robson presents the opening edition of our new regional magazine North Tonight at 11 tonight. Those programmes later, but now it's No Job for a Lady.
Oh dear, she hasn't got the power, but you could have. National Power and Power Gem.
Register now and you could qualify for incentives. Call 0272 272 272 for a prospectus.
Well, that's jolly good she's got the power after all. Yes.
Learning the finer points of the Japanese tea ceremony is no tea party. If you don't get every detail just so, it's a no-no. That's when there's really nothing for it but to say sayonara, slip away, and relax with a malty, chocolatey Ovaltine Light. Enjoy a little light relief with Ovaltine Light.
Mr. Kipling was chuckling about all my fishing equipment. Brought the trouser press, he asked me. Then he offered me a Bramley apple pie with custard. And have you brought the gas stove, I countered. But the custard was already inside, for these were Mr. Kipling's new apple and custard pies.
Smells good. You can't eat that.
You got cooking. How's about cooking something up with
You
me?
can't eat that.
Hey, sweet baby.
You can't eat that.
Don't you think that
Findus Lean Cuisine. With over 20 low-fat dishes that taste great. You can.
When Blake's brother comes to town, Bromley has to babysit. But it's not all plain sailing aboard the El Cid. Tomorrow at the later time of 9:10.